fellow bookworms, to Timber's Den. My name is Whitney, and I'm giving you my final thoughts on Nora Roberts' legacy. So we just finished this up. Last week, we had the final discussion for the last 5 chapters on Monday. If you finished the book and you haven't seen that video, definitely go check it out. If you haven't, I do recommend you get caught up. Before checking out that video, obviously there are spoilers in that video since we are discussing the last set of chapters. But today, like I said, I'm going to be giving my final thoughts. If you haven't read it, I do recommend it. Like, I did enjoy it. I'm going to, like I said, talk a little bit more here in a second. But I did think it was an enjoyable book, so I would recommend it. But yeah, before we get into my final thoughts on everything, I just want to remind you we are reading Jim Butcher's Stormfront this week. We just started it this week. We will be talking about the first 5 chapters come Monday. So if you haven't picked it up already, definitely do so. I'm really excited. I've read this before, so it is a reread, but I don't remember it at all. So I am really excited to reread it and kind of get refreshed. I know I enjoyed it. And then I do have most of the Dresden Files series, so I'm definitely planning on reading all of them once I get refreshed with this one. So definitely pick it up and then join us on Monday so you can discuss it. And I hope if you have read it before, you'll read it again with us as well. And so first off, just to add some context, I've been reading Nora Roberts since, I want to say before the summer I turned 15. My birthday's in September, so I'm pretty sure it's been about 19 years. I'm about to turn 34 this year. And the very first book I ever read of hers, and it's in rough shape, so I'm so sorry for those of you that would just find this atrocious. I think it kind of adds, to the personalizing the book. It's obviously been through a lot with me. But I read Nora Roberts' Chesapeake Blue. You can see, the sleeve is all torn apart. Dogs have gotten a hold of it a couple times. It's seen multiple puppies. And so it's just kind of in rough shape, but the pages are still all there. I'm still able to read it and everything like that. But yeah, this was the very first book I ever picked up of hers. And this was actually the 4th in the Chesapeake Bay saga. So of course I had to go back and read the others. And it just kind of spiraled from there. Like, I really enjoyed her. And I actually went through her publication list. And I have the majority of her works. There's some standalone novels that were released earlier that I don't have. And there's one trilogy I don't have, which I know I've read. So I really was surprised that I don't have it. So it's definitely something I'm going to have to pick up. I think, remembering back, I think I checked it out from the library. But I will be working on getting her complete collection of works because she is my favorite author. But yeah, those are the books I read. And as far as legacy goes, I think in context of her other books, it was not my favorite. I'm going to be completely honest there. In context of just a book itself, I did really enjoy it, but the way she wrote this one, she kind of drug it out. Like, the main character, you kind of see her from the time she's 7, and you go through her entire life. Which she does jump ahead here and there, but it was a lot more drawn out than I'm used to when I'm reading her. And you really don't get into the main portion of the book and the bulk of it until the third the third portion, because she divides it into 3 separate parts. So the third part is when you really kind of get into it and it gets interesting. And so I don't know, I liked it in some ways because she really built these characters. But in some ways it was a little too drawn out for me as well. So even though I did enjoy the book, I did like that aspect. Like I said, in some ways I really enjoyed it, but I can see people getting bored with it pretty quickly, especially if this is the first time you're reading Nora Roberts. I can see, maybe getting bored with it. But it was really good. And she did have, like, exciting portions throughout the book. Like, it was able to kind of keep my interest. But like I said, it was a little bit slow paced up until that third part. And, she did have like some heavy emotional things, especially there's a couple events which if you've read it you kind of know what I'm talking about that were right back to back, which could really surprise me. But I see why she did that, and I also see why she drug it out. For context, the main character um, is almost killed by her biological father, and I'm not really giving any spoilers away. It's in the synopsis of the book, but she's attacked and almost killed by her biological father when she's 7, and she ends up spending the summer with her grandparents, and then later on as an adult, she starts. Well, it started as a teenager, but she starts receiving death threats. But she does have a fitness brand and is kind of in the public eye. So her mom just thinks it's part of the territory because her mom's also in the public eye and gets death threats and such. And so the death threats kind of follow her throughout the book. These poems, and she calls the one sending them the poet. And so we do see that, and I think that's part because this goes on for a long time. From the time she was like I think 17, and into her 30s. So it is very drawn out. And I think that's part of the why the author drew it out too, to kind of replicate that and mimic that. But like I said, there are some emotional things, and it really built the characters, which is, I really enjoyed that part. Because normally, she builds the characters really well, which is what I would like about Nora Roberts, especially since, sometimes romance novels can be, just kind of fluff and just about the romance, where I don't think that's the case with Nora Roberts. Like, she really builds these characters and really builds the story. But most of the time, like, she kind of flashes back to the past, or it's just like a small portion in the beginning of the book, and then the bulk of the book is, the main part of the story. But like I said, it was very enjoyable, just not my favorite of hers. So, but yeah, I would recommend it for sure. And like I said, I do kind of like how she did it, and it was a little bit different. And like I said, there are moments that kind of keep your interest. And what I like about Nora Roberts is she does all different types of books, and I'm definitely more drawn to like her trilogies or sagas or things like that that kind of cover a family. Like, I really enjoyed those books of hers. And then she also does writing as J.D. Robb, which I have one book, and I don't enjoy her writing as J.D. Robb. This is the only book I have. I think I got it. I think I actually might have gotten it the first time I got Chesapeake Blue, because there was like a little book fair where you could get free books. The kids could, and I think I might have gotten it there. And it's not my favorite style of writing. And so this is the only one I have of her as JD Robb's. Um, as JD Robb, I don't really like to get rid of books. I get very attached to them, and so that's why I still have this, even though I'm never gonna reread it or anything like that. But she does do, like I said, a lot of trilogies, and she also adds like a lot of like fantasy or supernatural type stories in there, which are by far my favorite. Um, and so yeah, those are my favorite. And so if you did read this one and it wasn't your favorite, I do recommend you check out some of her other works, because not all her books are like this. There are some of the standalone ones that are, but she does a broad range, and she has so many different stories. And my favorite one of hers is actually Three Fates. Like, this is my favorite one. And this could have been made into a trilogy because it does follow 3 siblings, but she did it as a standalone, which I really actually kind of enjoyed that because all the siblings were very intertwined. And you didn't have, with some of her other trilogies, you kind of focus on what that one character that the story's about, and then the rest of the family's intertwined. And so when you're, go on to their story, you're kind of already introduced to them. But this one was so intertwined, and it was so fun, and this one was really fast paced. And I really did enjoy this. You can see I've read it lots. Like, the spine is just well worn for sure. And I think a dog did get a hold of this one as well. But yeah, this is my favorite one of hers. But like I said, there's several others that are kind of more like supernatural, like fantasy, like scary type books, which I've really enjoyed as well. So she does all kinds of books. And so, like I said, if you know, you don't think legacy might not be for you, which I, like I said, I really enjoyed it, and I do encourage you to read it. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying in the context of the rest of her books, it's lower on the list, but in the context of books in general and reading, I did really enjoy it, and I did really enjoy the story too. And like I said, the character building in this book is definitely top notch. Like, she really built these characters. And if you saw the previous videos, I had some predictions that weren't true, like they did not come to pass, which is completely, you know, understandable. Like, you know, not all your predictions are going to come to light, but some of my predictions did come true in the book. And I don't want to say which predictions in case you know you haven't read it. I don't want to give spoilers, and one of my predictions is a big spoiler, so I won't go there. But watch, if you read it, watch all the videos, and you'll see which ones I got wrong. Especially the last one about who the poet may be, because sometimes when she's doing books like this, where there's kind of like a murder or kind of more of a thriller aspect, the antagonist will be a part of the main character's life in some way, and we're kind of introduced to them, sometimes just like in passing, and then sometimes, you know, in a more prominent role. And so I thought that was going to be the case with this one, which it turned out it wasn't, but it's still, I like I said, it was enjoyable, and I mean there was still a connection there, which when you read it you'll see what I'm talking about. But like I said, it wasn't somebody who was a part of her everyday life either. So, but no, like I said, it was really enjoyable, and I do hope that you will pick it up and you will read it, because I definitely think it's worth a read. And like I said, if it's not quite your cup of tea, I still strongly recommend you try some of her other books, because she's a really good author, and like I said, she does really develop the characters and such, and I think a lot of her storylines are really good. And I think with this one's there's a lot to talk about, and so definitely head on over to my website. I will have the final book discussion questions up there. I'm not going to do a video on the final book discussion. It will just be on my website, so definitely check that out, because I do think there's some good points that are important to discuss. So that is it. Again, remember, we are reading Jim Butcher's Stormfront, so definitely pick that up, and I will see you guys on Monday. Happy reading, everyone. Bye.